What a wonderful little ditty. Good morning. This is...
Good morning.
Let's Talk, a listener call-in forum of ideas, concepts, thoughts, opinions, and issues of the day that affect us all.
Aren't we happy today?
I am very happy today. Why? Are you not?
Yeah, no, I'm fine.
Something wrong?
Well, it is
day.
Afternoon, not morning. I said good morning.
well, that's
day.
true. This afternoon. I am Paul Raffel, joined in the studio by Shelley Rugg.
Hi there.
Stephen Hurwitz.
Stephen Hurwitz, the dynamic duo across the counter from me. And
then there's Paul.
then there's Paul, who was just, not usually so dynamic.
Oh, dear.
What are we talking about today? I forgot. Oh, yeah.
Voting.
Systems. I think we can all agree that the electoral system in this country is kind of broken, has many problems.
Some of which are intentional.
Elucidate.
Well, in many areas, they don't have enough voting places intentionally.
Yeah.
So that's one.
And the intention being
Limit voting and
among certain demographics.
making it hard for people to do that.
And long lines. Practically everywhere, I think.
And not a day. How about here's a fix, perhaps one fix that might make things easier. Make it a holiday, or hold it on Sunday, and make it. How about making it compulsory to vote, and holding it over the course of 2 days?
How about in the mail? I vote by mail.
I vote
pretty
by
easy.
Mail, yeah. In the mail. How about online?
Mm-hmm.
Now.
How about at the bank?
What?
How about
at the ATM?
Making banks polling areas? There would be hundreds of them.
Okay, that's an idea. Give us a call. Oh, by the way, this is a call-in show, so you can't just sit there listening. You must call in. It's the law. 415-663-8492 or 8317. We'd love to hear from you, your thoughts, your worries, your concerns, your solutions, your just opinions about the electoral system in this country, which, to my mind, makes not only is it, as you said, difficult for quite a wide range of people, especially people of color or the poor, to vote because they have to take time off work. And then,
Right.
A lot of employers don't give you time off work to go vote. So it's inconvenient and difficult for a lot of people. And as you say, that may be intentional by some. There's gerrymandering.
That's a big one.
It's another way of
That's a big one.
setting your intentions.
Which the Supreme Court has just said the feds have no power to control. It's up to the states to do it. Well, there you go. Done.
I think that...
Thanks, Supreme Court.
And once it's done, there's a period of years before it can be done again.
It's blatantly political, yeah. And the census is coming up. And now the current administration wants to include the citizenship question, which doesn't have anything to do with the census. The census is just counting whoever is here and how to allocate dollars and how to what the demographics of a town, of a city, of an area is. And that's all. They're trying to change that because they don't want to give any kind of support or due to the people who, like me, used to be here as a resident alien, as an immigrant, and now I'm a citizen. I have full rights, except it can be taken away from me. Anyway,
really?
That's another story.
Really?
Okay, so we have so far we have it's difficult to vote for a lot of people. There's no holiday. No voting day holiday. It has to be done on one Tuesday. Can't be spread out over any time. If you don't have a mail-in ballot, can anyone get a mail-in ballot, or is it just because we're out in the boonies? And
I
think
know.
anyone can.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You have to apply for it or something. You have to sign up for it. Then there's gerrymandering. And then there is
registration. You'd be surprised how many people aren't registered.
Are not registered voters.
I was 2 years ago. I had various issues I was gathering signatures for, and there were lots of people who came by and said, "I'm not registered."
I'm not registered.
Yeah.
And there's a part of that, and I think our former co-host, one of the original co-hosts of this show, Bernie Stephan, doesn't vote. He refuses to vote because both parties are, in his opinion, just, in the pockets of the wealthy, of the corporations. Fair enough. But I think there is a slight difference between the two these days.
A slight.
Yeah. Anyway, he thinks the whole system's broken. Why vote for a broken system?
Right. That's an interesting position that I know, some people take, but I guess it kind of leaves you in a position of surrendering to whatever happens, and maybe it feels like you have no choice anyway. But some people like to think that at least voting could keep the worst from happening. You would like to think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people say not voting is a vote.
Right.
Well, you might say that, but
well,
actually,
if you do have
a non-vote,
if there's a party that's closer to your point of view between the two, that's a whole other issue, though. Two-party system.
Two-party system. See, I think this all adds up to why we have such low voter turnout. Eligible voters, only 50% of them in the last election, in the 2018. I think it was 60% in the presidential election. That's a big chunk of the country of voters who are...
Yeah, so that's a good topic, Why do people not vote?
Well, because
it's so messed up.
I think it's it certainly gives the impression that it doesn't matter what you vote, how you vote, because they're trying to make it as difficult as possible.
And then
there's
they have
only
the
two
Electoral
parties
College
really to choose from. Then there's the Electoral College. Oh, man.
And,
someone wins by popular vote, but they don't become president. Yeah.
Even when people do vote, how much information are they really using to vote? Are they just following instructions by someone they quote-unquote trust?
Right. It's really hard to feel adequately informed.
You're following the party line.
The information,
which is the problem with the basic two-party system. Okay, there is an independent party and there's a green party, but really, no. Because they don't stand a chance in this system that we have. First past the post wins everything. That's, So this has been an interesting 5 days of checking things out. I had no idea, for example, that San Francisco has a different method of voting.
Oh, yeah. Talk about that.
They have the ranked choice voting system, which is where it's not just the first past the post wins everything. You list, I don't know, if there's 4 candidates running, you list them in order of your preference. You have to have 50. You have to have a majority, so you have to have just over 50%. 50% plus one vote will win you the thing. But if there's 4 running, and they're strong candidates, or they're from other parties that you might be right, not just Republican and Democrat, you list them in order of your preference. The lowest ranked one, the lowest count. Lowest number of votes, that candidate gets dropped, and the votes for that candidate are transferred for the people who had him or her as their first choice. Those votes go to your second choice. So one of the other candidates will get the votes that went to that were going to this guy or this woman, and they go to the next on the list. And they go down.
Wow.
And I've been using that in San Francisco for local elections, for city elections, for years, apparently. I had no idea.
Are people required to vote more than once under the system?
No.
So it's
No, it's still just
automatically
one-
filtered down.
Yeah. It's
Interesting.
as the candidates are dropped off the bottom, their votes go to the next preference on every voter's list.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Wow.
And
Interesting.
with a field of, I mean, we don't even have to whittle down the field. With a field of 24 Democrats running, you could just have your preferences, and they just drop them off. 10 would go the first time around. I think that is that really gets to the heart of one of the problems, is that the people that are available, the candidates that are available to vote for, are not necessarily the ones that you want in. But because it's a two-party system, you vote for the Democrat or you vote for the Republican.
Right.
You hold your nose.
You go with Pelosi or McConnell. And we have a caller. Hi, caller. You're on the air. What's your name, please? And please, keep it clean.
My name is Charles, and I'm in Marshall.
Hello, Charles.
Well, hello, Shelley, my darling.
So good to hear from you.
Please, now. Enough of this
What
flirting.
would you call me if I say hello?
I would just say that Steve Mnuchin apparently insists on being called Stevens. And I don't know if you have other connections with the Trump administration, Mr. Horowitz. I think that, one of the problems is kind of just in the DNA of our particular civilization, which is when people talk about democracy, oftentimes they're tempted to talk about Athenian democracy, which really has nothing to do with our present system. So in Greek life and Athenian life, public participation conferred status. And if you didn't participate publicly, and we've talked about the Greek term idiotes, the idea of person with only private concerns, being a mark of a deficient member of that particular society. Now, we come out of what's essentially a medieval German tradition, which is all about defending local rights against princes. And so I think, one, of course, you need something to vote for, but we don't like public participation, except for when we're defending our local rights or prerogatives against the intrusion from concentrations of power. And so that's why I think, don't have to be Tip O'Neill to know that all politics is local. But if you can organize locally around the material concerns that your little town has, then I think we can do things with democracy. But the idea of a massive federal democracy, 320 million people, all, this fiction that we're all one or that we're all sort of participating in the same thing, that's never going to work. And like I say, we don't even like it. We don't like to participate publicly.
So would you disband the Union of the States?
Well, no, I would just say that if you want anything to happen, you need to generate that kind of political activity on a very local level. And normally it is about, or traditionally, it's about strengthening our local communities against the ways in which other concentrations of power, like the county government or the state government or certainly the federal government, attempt to dictate, the way in which we're going to live and how we're going to survive.
How would that, for example, affect the immigration problem, immigration policy? You can't do that on a local level. I mean, you can have different rules for every district along the border as to who you're going to let in or something. But on a national level, as one subject, one topic, immigration, how would you deal with that on a local level?
Well,
it has to be federal, doesn't it?
You would have to generate some kind of bottom-up activity which was going to redefine the terms of the economy. So presently, we participate and enforce trade regimes in this hemisphere and around the globe that cause massive displacement of population. So, the benefit that everyone sees, the portfolio men and women see in the value of their assets is borne out.
Uh-oh. Hello.
Just when we were getting to the...
His battery just died.
Oh.
Well, call back, Charles. Yes, well, we do live in a federal republic, don't we? Isn't that what it is? Federal republic. So we are a union of states. Can we get rid of some of the states?
Yes.
Should California secede?
I can think of a few we'd like to
Yes, you're back.
expel.
Sorry about that. And sorry for your listeners that I called back.
Yes, I feel very sympathetic.
You're setting an example, Charles.
I want to get that out up front. No, I mean, so the presently the way the economy functions is, we decimate Central America's economies, and in desperation, those people are going to move to the conditions in which they can survive, which would come to the United States.
How do you fix that without the federal government? I mean, you're trying to change a policy of the federal government.
I think that, again, to generate some kind of local activity that removes the imperative to impoverish what formerly was called the Third World in order to benefit, ourselves. If we can do that locally, so that, for instance, there isn't a need for migrant labor, then say we could emphasize local systems of food production and distribution that don't require industrial farming in the Central Valley, or bringing up cantaloupes from Chile every winter, which is, if you're having cantaloupe in California in January, it is coming from 5,000 miles away.
Charles, you're looking at this thing in such a broad way. We've got, there are questions right now that are much more specific, and it seems like you don't really want to address that. What you want to talk about is whether we follow a Greek notion of democracy, et cetera, et cetera. But really, for example, Paul mentioned a very specific question. You've got a lot of areas that maybe, joining together as a union benefit all of us.
Well, to that point, Steve, is that if you speak about what do we do in the crisis, then all of your options become very, very narrow. So, for instance, if you're talking about, and I hate to use such loaded examples, but if you're talking about what do we do about these people in Germany who've taken over, it's 1938, what are our options? Well, they're very, very limited. You've got a war on your hands, what are you going to do about it? Now, if decisions had been taken differently 20 years prior in the Treaty of Versailles or the relationship of...
Well, now you're talking about treaties. Who's signing a treaty if you're doing everything locally?
Well,
you're still having a federal government. You've still got...
I'm making a rhetorical point
the power.
About the crisis.
He's an anarchist. You're an anarchist.
No, I mean, the point isn't about treaties or that particular episode in history. It's just that when you place the decision within this extraordinary crisis, then the options become very limited. And the answer to that, I think, would have to be multifold. You would have to actually, and the people are talking about this. Actually, came up with a debate saying, well, we need to do something about Honduras' economy, not just say everybody who comes into the United States needs to be open, welcome with open arms. I mean, obviously we're all immigrants to this country, and I would take a pretty broad and open view to that. At the same time, we're not economically threatened by immigration, but immigration does represent an economic threat to the working class.
It might be beneficial. I mean, I think immigration has been shown to be actually beneficial to the country rather than a detriment.
Well, beneficial to whom? It means that when we go out to eat at a restaurant, the prices are artificially low because of exploited labor in the Central Valley, exploited labor washing the toilets and the dishes for us, exploited labor.
Okay. So the economics of this country are terrible, and we've done terrible things to Central America, and we're forcing people to migrate northwards to this promised land of ours. What we're talking about today is the voting system. How would you fix the voting system? I mean, what would you do? You'd make it all just local politicians. There would be 15,000 local politicians instead of the federal government?
No, I mean, I would just say that if you want something to change in a higher level, you have...
I want a lower level.
Yeah, well, you have to create something authentic on a lower level.
Don't we need somebody to protect us from, powerful corporations, et cetera, who want to want to use our rivers as a means of, getting rid of their waste, et cetera, know?
Now, that is that could be handled locally.
Well, and it is. I mean,
but the power relationship is so different.
Yeah, well, what's broken about this electoral system is that there's huge money involved in it that's going to politicians whose only job is to be reelected. That's all they want, and to rake in as much as they can.
That's
while
systemic.
They're there. So. For example, how do you vote those kinds of politicians out? If there's only two parties, a two-party system, first past the post, I would say that that this choice, the ranked choice voting, is one of the fixes that might get rid of them and might create new parties. Like the Democratic Party is right now. Nancy Pelosi and her crew are fighting against the young progressives. And suddenly there's this schism, and Fox News is widening the schism. And it's really two parties, right? There could be a social democrat party that would be a viable third party.
We have a Russian party, too, by the way, now.
Oh, for God's
What?
I mean, they're interfering in the election. They're helping us to make our own decisions. We don't know what is true, what isn't, has been...
Another problem is that the electoral system, the voting systems can be hacked, and apparently the current administration doesn't think it's a problem. I wonder why.
I would just say that just take the New Deal, for example, and those young people in Congress have been pushing a Green New Deal.
Okay.
You have to go back to the origins of the old New Deal, which was the federal government can look at things that were happening in the ground in terms of how do you feed people, how do you employ people in this crisis, and then they can take those programs and foster them on a national level, which is what FDR did. But it did come from some kind of replication of what was happening on the ground. So if we come up with a solution, say, to taking the vast majority of fossil fuels out of our electricity and out of our heat, that is something that the federal government can then say, that worked, and now we can champion that existing thing. But you have to give them something to champion. These people are not going to come up with it on their own. I mean,
No. And so the people that are there, the ones who, especially the career politicians, need to be shaken up. This is only my opinion.
Term limits.
Term limits. I don't know. Do you need term limits? This is again. I think if we tried out ranked choice voting, I think term limits would be unnecessary because there'd be more choices of people coming up through who would appeal to different appeals to different people instead of I must vote this way or I must vote that way.
Right.
I hope
we are captured at the moment.
Yeah.
I hope the San Francisco resident will call in because my understanding is that ranked choice voting has not produced a progressive paradise in San Francisco.
No, it's produced people who have been voted in who may not have been voted in, or but it seems to be working. I think most San Franciscans are pretty happy with it. I think.
Well, I think it's a technocratic fix, just like with term limits. It says, okay, these few politicians, and really in California it was about Willie Brown, who spent 33 years in the Assembly and accrued a huge amount of power to himself. They say, well, we'll prevent that by having term limits. But what that does is give all the power to the lobbyists who actually want to know what's going on, and all the power to the corporations. But when you think about this problem of corporations, you have to think about you need to change the conditions in which they can concentrate so much power. And you need to do it by creating ways of surviving, as local economies, I would say, that remove the need for these mega corporations, and then you can begin to undermine their power. But you could change all these little rules, and because it's like throwing a rock into to the Sacramento River, a temporary disruption, and then the water, being this massive amount of concentrated power, just moves around that rock.
So you think the voting system's okay as it is?
I would just say if you're interested in some kind of decent human survival, you should not forget about federal politics, and I'm not being glib about this. I don't think anybody should vote for Donald Trump or vote for nasty candidates, or whatever. You should vote for the best one that you've got and participate and go out and vote. I mean, it is important. But if you really want things to change, you have to get engaged in your own communities in big questions. Yeah. Where does the water come from? Where does the food come from? Where does the electricity come from?
Sure.
So, and I would say people should call in. This is a call-in show.
It is a call-in show. If you get off that line. Oh, sorry.
There's two lines. There
are two lines.
There's another line.
415-663-8492 or 8317, which is where Charles.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
Charles.
you
for calling, Charles.
Interesting. Cheers.
Do you want to?
Charles always has plenty to say. And very good too. Of course, local politics, local elections are very important. People, don't discount your local elections.
Yeah, let's set a good example right here in our town.
Yeah,
by doing it right, whatever that is.
We're getting the money out of it.
Getting the money out of it.
Yeah, I think that's
how
a
do you
biggie.
do how? But how? So you
publicly
vote for,
funded.
You vote for I'll come to that.
Oh.
I just found that this morning.
Okay.
Democracy dollars. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't. What is it?
Okay. This is KWMR, 90.5 in Point Reyes Station, 89.9 in Bolinas, and 92.3 in the San Geronimo Valley, and we are streaming live all over the world on kwmr.org, which is where some of our listeners are listening to us right now, and they should be calling. They should be calling 415-663-8492. KWMR is supported in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. CPB's mission is to ensure universal access to non-commercial, high-quality content and telecommunications services. It does so by distributing more than 70% of its funding to more than 1,500 locally owned public radio and television stations, just like this radio station. KWMR is also supported by Marin Agricultural Land Trust, currently doing a road safety reminder for Saturday, July 20th, when the organization will be putting on the Tour de Tumult, a 40-mile benefit bicycle ride. Drivers are encouraged to be aware of cyclists and to use safe driving practices during this time. Bicyclists will leave Nicasio at 7 a.m., head north, up Highway 1 to Marshall Petaluma Road, and down Hicks Valley Road, back toward Nicasio by 3 p.m. Again, that's on Saturday, July 20th. And thank you to our underwriters. Thank you to Malt and everyone else in this little folder that we have on the desk here. They're very generous organizations around here, and our listeners. And speaking of listeners, we have a caller. Speaking of listeners, do call in on this subject of voting systems, the electoral system in this country. What are the fixes that could possibly make it less broken? And we have a caller. You're on the air, caller. What's your name, please?
Hi, this is Gail.
Gail.
Hi, Gail.
Hi. I missed the very beginning. You might have talked about this, but it seems that this conversation about local versus national politics, I mean, there are states that don't take care of things in the way that maybe the majority of the people of the country feel that they should be taken care of, or who, have such different priorities. Whether it's commercial or environmental or educational, we've set standards that apply to everyone because it would be so cumbersome to address them all as individuals. I mean,
yeah.
So that's
one would like to think that everyone cares about the environment equally, or cares about people's civil rights equally, and it doesn't seem to be the case in the states.
Well, we are human after all.
Yeah.
Humans are flawed.
So there wouldn't have been a civil war if everybody agreed, if the states.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd still have slavery if people in their local areas decided to do it.
Right. So obviously segregation, a million issues, that the government has said as a people, this is who we are rather than as individuals or small communities.
Right.
Have you guys talked at all about the process of voting? You know, the voting machines and all the changes.
Yes, we have. We were numbering some of the problems at the beginning of the show, such as the voting machines themselves are very hackable, as we keep seeing. 11-year-olds hack the voting machine in 5 minutes. Great. And the administration is not concerned about this. McConnell has shut down a bill that was going through that was supposed to strengthen security on voting systems, voting machines. Then there's gerrymandering. There's the big money.
I think gerrymandering is one of the big deals, personally.
Oh,
well,
big money.
Supreme Court doesn't.
Well, it says it's up to the states, but that doesn't mean a state. That doesn't mean a state has to be a victim of it. I mean, they can address that issue.
Yeah, local elections.
Locally,
you know,
state. Yeah, it's all about the states, and if you're in a state that wants to suppress a certain demographic of the population, then it's up to you to change it, isn't it? Yes, vote those people out. But hey. Yeah, so, we did do that. Why? Well, do you have a fix? That's what we want to know. Do we have a fix for the electoral system?
I think that the places to vote should be ubiquitous. They should be everywhere. That's why I said the banks. But I was just an example. A lot of other places, too. But if banks are everywhere. And
nobody goes in banks anymore. They're all at the ATM.
Well, so there you go.
So
there'd be plenty
it's a
of
big empty space.
So there'd be plenty of place. Yeah. So
line up at the Versateller.
Yeah. Well, Diebold.
Let's
face it. Diebold makes ATMs and voting machines.
But when we were in Argentina, we were surprised to hear that it's an obligation. It's actually a responsibility to vote, and even for people who are out of the country at the time of elections. They have very elaborate plans for having places where they can vote in the countries where they are.
Huh.
So they literally, everybody gets the day off from school and business. I'm not sure exactly the details, but they do everything to encourage people to vote, even if they're away from home.
So is it just encouragement, or, is there some kind of, will you get...
It's compulsory, isn't it? Is this Argentina?
Yeah.
They haven't done too good a job over there.
Well,
really.
They got rid of
I know that it's
dictators,
but I don't know if there are penalties for not participating or how aggressively they. But I think they're pretty aggressive of making it possible for people to vote, and I think people vote.
I think the same is true of Australia. I think it's compulsory to vote there.
In the United States, they make it you vote if you're not in the country.
They don't make you.
No.
No.
You can vote, but they certainly don't. This is where they set up proxy locations, all over the world.
I think voting by mail is a easy fix.
Well, it's certainly easy for us out here, where we don't have polling. So, we're in Tamales. There's a polling station.
They don't want to. It's discouraged in certain areas because the very same people that are making it difficult to get to the polling stations, it would be too easy for them to vote if they got a mail ballot.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly the fewer people that vote, it tends to go one way. Yeah. When you only have two parties. Again, I'm saying. Two-party system. Yeah. This is a big problem.
You prefer a parliamentarian?
Thanks for calling, Gail.
Thank you, Gail.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Our number is 415-663-8492. Give us a call. Give us your thoughts on the voting system and how it might be made easier, for one thing, for people to vote.
Well, and there's just the fact that it is so broken, and there's so many ways that it's broken. So many layers.
Talk about discouraging.
It's very discouraging. So how do we flip that? The idea that people just want to throw their hands up and not even participate. How can we flip that and make it something that feels worthwhile?
Yes.
Well, again, I lay a lot of it at the foot of the two-party system. When you have two parties, it's the same in the UK. I have to say, in the UK, I'm not sure you get a day off, but you certainly get time off work. to go vote, I think. Well,
and they have a parliamentarian system over there, don't they?
Yeah,
It's not functioning?
They choose the prime minister. Boris Johnson's about to become prime minister. Wow. Yeah. Anyway, how to make it seem worthwhile to go and vote.
Yeah.
When your choices are between two people that you may not particularly care about,
right.
might be antipathetic to one and kind of, he's okay, but I don't really want to.
Social media is ramping up right now for the Democratic Party, Okay, now, you Democrats, get ready. You might have a candidate you don't like, but vote for them anyway.
Right.
And it's just like, what?
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
That is the reality of a two-party system.
Yeah.
Whereas, if there were, I go back to the ranked choice. I think that's a great
So you're
idea.
liking that idea. Have
they
you heard
used it in Maine? Used it in Maine. I think everyone who participated in it thought it was good. It all seemed to go okay. That was in a state election.
It seems like you would come away feeling like your vote actually mattered.
Right.
That it counted in particular way, and that you had a first, second, and third choice. So that even if you got your third choice, at least there was something appealing about that candidate,
right?
That you could live with.
At least it wasn't the fourth choice,
right?
Or maybe it is. You're never going to be. Every single person is not going to be satisfied with people. But I really do think it's an impetus for more parties to join in, more candidates, more different kinds of candidates who are going to appeal to different things in different people in different areas. There'll be people who are, as Charles was saying, who are more concerned with local issues. They could run for state government and get things done in their district instead of
right.
And right now, the third party candidate is actually a spoiler.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so if everyone blames Nader, but Nader, if it were a ranked choice voting thing, he would have been third on most people's lists. He would have dropped off the list, and those votes would have gone to
the second choice.
The second choice, yeah. So I'm just saying, I think it's a great idea. And here's another interesting idea. Not sure that it's going to happen in the next year or so, but Kirsten Gillibrand has put her brand on it. Democracy dollars, which has been happening in Seattle, apparently. They've been trying this since 2013 in their elections for city council, city attorney. They send out vouchers of $25 vouchers to each voter, 4 $25 vouchers, which they can send to the candidate of their choice in any way they like. 4 candidates, or all $100 goes to one candidate. In an effort to take big money, like, Amazon now owns Seattle, but in an effort to take big money out of the elections, especially local elections. Now, Kirsten Gillibrand and some others. There's, what's his name? Lawrence Lessig, who's a professor, I forget where he's from, but he's been pushing for it as well, to help take some of this big money out of politics. Candidates would sign up to be included in this program. This would be in presidential elections she's talking about, and Senate, the federal elections. She's talking about giving every voter vouchers up to $600, so 3 vouchers of $200 each, I think, which is a lot of money. How are they going to? Apparently, they're going to pay for it by plugging the loophole on excessive CEO pay for any company whose CEO makes 25 times what the workers do. They would have to pay extra tax. And so I had no idea if this works. I only found out about this morning. So it's they're talking about $60 million would be available at some point to fund this program. That wouldn't be enough, though, would it?
I was going to say,
that's
the kind of money that's going into these things, that's like small potatoes.
Are you talking about one state or the whole country?
No, this is she's talking about it for the feds. Okay, here we are. Participants receive $200. It's only $200. 2 $100 vouchers, one for presidential candidates, one for Senate. I think it's moving so fast. How do we pay for it? Excessively high CO compensation. Somehow they're going to get money. $60 billion over 10 years. So,
oh, wow.
There you go. Every eligible voter can opt in to receive. This is an opt-in thing. In Seattle, just in the city area, everyone got it, whether they didn't have to opt into it. They didn't have to choose to be involved in it. But the candidates had to choose to be involved in it. The ones who think they're going to get more money from the corporations will still get their money from the corporations.
So if they get it, they have to forego?
They have to. There will be spending limits anyway, but they have to forego any other...
I see.
Up to a certain amount from corporations who are just exercising their free speech by donating.
Well, they are individuals. They are people.
Oh, this country. Anyway, she says she's calling it her plan. She didn't invent this, but anyway, put the power of funding federal campaigns into the hands of working Americans. For too long, small groups of wealthy donors have outsized influence over our government. True enough. Hold candidates accountable to people, not special interests. That's just putting it a different way. Empower more Americans, especially young people, women, and people of color, by leveling the playing field of who's powering federal campaigns. This plan will amplify the voices of Americans who haven't been heard for too long. And they would establish strong anti-fraud safeguards to go along with it. There you go.
What about this phenomenon that we're seeing right now where everybody and his sister are jumping in? Everybody thinks they're presidential material.
Yeah.
I'm going to presume they're going to...
Never mind.
What?
Nothing.
You're running?
Go ahead.
Me? For the perks. I was thinking of running just for the perks. No, I think that it's everyone. Are they running because they just want to be part of the conversation? Because I would say most of them, the chance of garnering a large percentage of the votes is pretty slim.
Yeah. Well, somebody's dropped out, or a Swalwell dropped out already.
And somebody just entered. A billionaire just entered. I can't remember.
Yeah. Why aren't they? Yeah, they should run for Senate rather than president. We need more people in the Senate who are going to stop this deadlock that we have. And
everybody, her sister.
What?
Excuse me.
What?
No, it's all fine. Forget it.
I don't know.
What?
What? I said everybody and his sister.
Oh, I see.
I was.
See, that one got by the inspectors. Election integrity archive. Anyway, then we're still talking about the machines that are involved. There's they want to do a lot of places, a lot of jurisdictions want to do away with paper ballots because they're too time consuming. We all remember the hanging chads in Florida, don't we?
Right.
Other people are saying we must have paper ballots as a backup to the electronic. It has to be able to print out a paper ballot. But then, I don't know, how do you get around this thing where machines just change your vote, which we also hear about in every election? I put in John Smith and it came out Kirsten Gillibrand. How did that happen? Machines are choosing. And, of course, Diebold, one of the main makers of the machinery, run by a very right-wing person. Anyway.
Curious. Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, even if we have paper ballots, if you've got humans handling them,
right,
they could get lost.
Right. Humans are not to be trusted. Let's just put it out there.
So that's the thing. Maybe that's what we need to work on. We need to work on elevating our trustworthiness.
Oh, well.
And stop being such devious types.
What was his name? Boss
Hog.
I'll get it. Boss
anyway,
Tweed.
Boss Tweed.
Yeah, he said, I don't care who's elected as long as I get to nominate.
Yeah, there you go. That's the old system where it was just political influence. Now it's just money. New Yorker article. Let's see. What is the headline? It is Mitch McConnell is making the 2020 election open season for hackers. There you go. Senator Ron Wyden. It's not just the Russians. There are hostile foreign actors who are messing with 200 years' worth of really precious history. He's on the Intelligence Committee, so he knows a thing or two about what's happening, I guess. Anyway, they're not going to do anything about it.
It goes both ways.
How?
Yeah.
How do they get away with this,
Well.
Everyone can see that there's a problem, yet they get to create legislation that denies the problem.
Well, they get to deny legislation.
They just didn't.
Mitch McConnell does.
Right. One man.
It's one man. See, this is what's happening.
He's never been voted. The citizens of Kentucky now have.
Yes, they've got some work to do. Oh, man.
I'm going to Louisville, by the way. I'm going down.
Louisville? You're going to be canvassing?
I've got a cousin that lives there. I'm going down.
Ah.
He's going down.
I'm going down. Who's running against him?
She, I should know her name.
Well, if you're going to go down there and canvass for her.
Oh, yes. I've seen pictures, but I forget the name as well. They're calling her the savior or something.
Well, we'll see. Oh, she was a vet. Is that right? A veteran? Is that right? Isn't that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm suspect of everybody who calls himself a vet. Therefore, that gives them a leg up on deciding what the political issue should be.
Well, the common thread is that I've been to war and I know what war is like, and I don't want to go back to another one. Fair enough. Great. If that really happens, or was there some enjoyment in it?
It is a volunteer military.
Voting machine. So there's a new. Well, it's not that new. 3 years ago, learning about the Do Vote internet voting system, voting over the internet, and why not? Can we? We have cryptography that is military grade on our computers now. Anything can be hacked. We know that voting machines can be hacked. We know that computers can be hacked. And so is it any worse than going to an actual ballot place? If you could do it online, would you do it online? I would.
Yeah, I mean, if you can go to the DMV online, that's a great thing. So same with voting. I mean, if you could sit in the comfort of your own living room and cast your vote in a timely manner.
How about, as I say, how about if it were 2 days voting? If you can't get off on
I think that's a terrific idea.
This is one of the drawbacks of the ranked choice voting system.
Let's hear it.
Is that it takes a little longer.
Okay.
Right? So the media don't like it. They want a result today. We've got to announce who the president is tonight before midnight.
So I think we're actually in a point in our history where we need to take longer with everything.
Yes.
We need to do that.
Like homework on who you're going to vote for.
Yeah, spend more time.
Think about who you're voting for if you're going to vote. Yes, and what might happen. But you could have like voting groups, right? You get together with your friends and you talk about it. Get more informed. Or you could just watch Fox News. They'll tell
or I'll
you
just call Charles and ask him who to vote for.
Of course, Charles is a fount of knowledge.
He'll have you voting back in the 4th century BC.
Vote for Erasmus. So anyway, we have about 5 minutes. please give us a call. Won't you? 663-415-663-8492. Give us your last-minute fixes. It would be wonderful if we could change the whole system by 2020.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, but then again, what do you change it to?
Well,
right.
You know
Let's change
my
the
opinion.
system, but yeah.
Rank choice. That would be my... I really, reading about it, I'm convinced that it would change a lot of bad stuff. It wouldn't take all the, gerrymandering. It doesn't affect gerrymandering. But it might take some of the big money out. Just saying. Or there would be a greater choice of candidates and parties.
I think the big
money would have to be spread around more. More big money. I don't know. But big money is the thing, right?
Yeah. Koch brothers.
That's the main thing.
They vote with their dollars and they just throw a lot of it around.
So then maybe democracy dollars or something like that would be that one
doesn't seem
solution.
to me. That one's just not resonating.
I'm guessing
with me.
it's not going to go because we can't afford it.
Oh, let's take all that money and pay off all the college loans. I mean, I can think of a lot of places to spend $60 billion or whatever.
Yes, I'm sure you can. But I don't know. At least they're thinking about it. They seem to think it may work for citywide elections, as Seattle is finding. They've been trying it for a little while, and it seems to have maybe leveled the playing field, as they say.
Do you think even if the system is broken, that voting might be better than not voting? I mean, what's the opinion there?
There you go.
I'm a voter.
Yeah,
I'm going to vote.
I vote.
We'd like to think if we could get more people to participate, just
yes.
in participating alone, change could happen.
That's right. Participation is key. I would say the Electoral College has to go because that was just put in place to keep the slave states in the Union back in the early days.
The nomination process is so broken.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Look what happened with Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I know. Oh, boy, we have a caller. Do we? Yes. Do we? Yes, we do.
Real quick.
This is really late. We have 2 minutes. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
The bottom line is the longer... Oh, my name's David, by the way.
Yes,
the bottom line is the longer a system is in place, the more people figure out how to game it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, right.
So it's time for an overhaul, is what you're saying.
Well, that's why Donald Trump got elected. Because there are too many people who, have little fiefdoms.
Yeah.
And he was in there to drain the swamp, right? and he did, right?
And as some headline said the other day, now it's a federally protected wetland.
Yeah, it's bigger than a swamp.
Very good.
Well, thanks for calling, David.
Anyway.
Hi, David.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
David. Yes. Well, I think there's hope. I really
hang on to that hope.
I'm going to be pushing for ranked choice voting everywhere.
All right.
Everywhere in the state. And
well, at least locally. I mean, local voting is...
Yeah?
Let's
for
try
supervisors, you mean, like that? Or that's the trouble with the county,
So ranked choice voting is used primarily for on the federal level?
It's been used at state level so far. And city, the San Francisco does
So
it.
governors, mayors.
So millions of people using it.
Okay.
I think it's
Let's
good.
try it.
Anyway.
What the heck?
Get out and vote,
everybody.
I've got to... KWMR does not take a stand of any of the opinions expressed on this show. The opinions are those of the callers and the hosts, and do not reflect the views of the radio station, its supporters, members,
or board of directors,
even other listeners,
etc.
That's how I recall that. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for
Thank
listening.
you.
Thank you both for being here again. And yes, let's leave with a little Peter Hamill. Why not? See you next week.